Hi, and welcome to week 3 of Summer Math Camp. And this week we're focusing on adding and subtracting. And this lesson specifically focuses on adding fractions. Now, just like I said last week, fractions are numbers too. They just look a little different since they represent part of a whole. So here's some important facts to remember when adding fractions. First of all, do not add the denominators ever. And I'm going to underline ever. Next, do not add fractions with unlike denominators. Again, ever. And finally, make sure the answer is in simplest form. And this one is always do this. So, 3 rules to remember when you are adding fractions. So first, let's start with adding fractions with like denominators. So when you have like denominators, you are simply adding the numerators. So as you can see in my problem, my equation, 1/4 plus 2/4 equals, and on this next fraction here, you see that I actually just going to put 1 plus 2 over my denominator of 4. Okay, because that's basically what we're doing. We're saying you're going to add your and we're going to add your numerators together, and we're doing nothing to the denominator. It's just staying a 4. So 1 plus 2 equals 3, and 4 equals 4. So your answer is 3/4. Now, is 3/4 in simplest form? Yes, it sure is, because I can't divide both 3 and 4 by the same number. And that's what's happening when you're simplifying. You're making those numbers even smaller. And I can't divide 3 and 4 by the same number. So therefore, I'm in simplest form, and I've solved the equation. Now, let's move down here. Number 2 says you can also have this. And we look at it, 3/8 plus 1/8 equals, again, I've left my denominator 8 because it doesn't change. I'm not adding it. It's not going to become 16. But I do add 3 plus 1. And what is 3 plus 1? It equals 4. So there's 4/8. So now, again, after I've gotten my answer, I'm going to ask, is my answer, in this case 4/8, in simplest form? No, it's not. But, here's that important part, but what number can you divide both 4 and 8 by evenly? And here's our key word, evenly. We want to pay attention to that, evenly. So let's look down here. I can divide both the numerator 4 and the denominator 8 by the number 4. I can divide them both by 4. So 4 divided by 4 equals 1. 8 divided by 4 equals 2. So dividing both the numerator and denominator by 4 converts our answer to simplest form. Now you have solved the equation. So my final answer is going to be 1/2 because you always want your answer to be in simplest form. All right, so let's go on. Now let's look at number 3. So what if you have mixed numbers? Well, it's really no different. So here we have, oops, sorry, that's a little bit too big. So here we have 4 3/8 plus 7 1/8. Okay, so first you're simply going to add together the whole numbers. So here you can see I've added the 4 here, okay, plus the 7 here, and you can see I get 11 is my answer. It's the sum of 4 plus 7. Now I'm going to add my fractions together. So just like we did before in problems 1 and 2, we're going to just add the fractions. So again, we have 3/8 plus 1/8, which is the same as 3 plus 1 over the denominator 8. Well, 3 plus 1 is 4, and then we keep our denominator 8 because it doesn't change. And we don't add the denominators. So your final answer combines the whole number and the fraction together. Okay? So now you can see 4 plus 7 is 11. So here we have the 11. And then we came back and said 3 plus 1 equals 4. And we kept our denominator traveling. So 8, 8. It's still 8 here. And then we simplified 4/8 because 4/8 can be divided by 4. But the numerator 4 and the denominator 8 can be divided by 4, which leaves us with 1/2. So our final answer is 11 1/2. And you don't want to forget to simplify your fraction. Do not forget. You do not have a final answer to your problem if you do not simplify. Okay. So now we're going to move down here. And it says, what about adding improper fractions? Now, some of you watching this video may not be familiar with improper fractions yet. That's okay. If you're not, an improper fraction just means that you have more than one whole. So, in this case, we're looking at 10/5 plus 25/5 equals what? So you solve this equation the same way. So as you can see, I added 10 plus 25, and my denominator 5 stayed a 5. So 10 plus 25 equals 35, and then my denominator simply travels over and continues to be a 5 in the denominator. Okay, so now here's the next question. It says, but how are you going to simplify this fraction? Well, it's pretty easy. You just need to remember that fractions are division equations. They just look different. So here, this is like saying, switch my pen over here, 35/5 is the same as saying your numerator, 35, divided by 5. So, this and this are the same thing. Just looks different. Remember, fractions, we're just dividing things into pieces, dividing a whole into parts. That's what a division problem is. You're dividing the whole 35 into parts of 5. So therefore, you can read your answer as 35 divided by 5. How many times can 5 go into 35? Or you can look at it this way, 5 times what number equals 35? And if you said 7, you're correct. So don't let an improper fraction scare you. It's simply still a division problem, and it's actually one that you can work out and get a whole number. So here you can see it. 10 plus 25 over 5 equals 35/5 equals 7 whole. Okay? And if you did it this way, and I'm going to use a visual model, and I'm going to say, what if I had, let's go red again. Let's say I had my 35, okay? So I'm going to make 35 dots, but I'm going to group them in groups of 5. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35. And I have them in groups of 5. Well, how many groups of 5 do I have? Well, I'm going to go through and I'm going to highlight. Actually, I'm going to circle them. So I think you'll be able to see this a little easier. Let's go with this color. So I have one group of 5, 2 groups of 5, 3 groups of 5, 4, 5, 6, 7. We'll even number them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We'll do it on the other side in black just so you can see it a little better. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So if you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 little dots 7 times, well, what's 5 times 7? 35. All right. Now, for some of you who are fourth graders going into fifth grade. I will let you know now, if you want to stop the video here, you can, because now we're starting to get into a fifth grade learning target, which is adding fractions with unlike denominators. Now, if you feel comfortable and confident and want to move on in this video, that's completely fine. However, you do not have to do so. So, I'm going to go ahead and continue on. So the second part is adding fractions with unlike denominators. So when you're adding fractions with unlike denominators, you must first make your denominators match before you can solve the problem. You can make your denominators match by finding the least or smallest common multiple. Now, you know this from our video last week and from what you've learned in class. You're basically making an equivalent fraction. You're making at least one equivalent fraction, if not two. So let's look at our example. So our example is 1/2 plus 3/8. Now, we know that one of our rules from the beginning of this video says that you cannot add fractions with unlike denominators ever. So you're going to have to make these denominators match. You're going to have to make it where it's the same denominator for both fractions. So when you're finding the least or smallest common multiple for your fractions, take a look at your smallest denominator. Then ask, can I multiply the smaller denominator by a number to equal the larger denominator? In this case, you can. So if you look at your smaller denominator, it's 2. Well, can I multiply 2 times a number and get 8? And get 8. So in this case, I can multiply 2 times 4 to get to 8. So now remember, when we're creating equivalent fractions, whatever you do to your denominator, you must do the same thing to your numerator. So if you multiply your denominator by 4, you must also multiply your numerator by 4. This creates your equivalent fraction. So you see here, 1/2 is equal to how many eighths? Because that's ultimately, we want 8 as our denominator. So here you can see I multiplied our numerator times 4, and I got 4. And then I multiplied my denominator times 4, and of course got 8. Now, you can substitute your equivalent fraction, 4/8, into your original equation. So, as you can see above, my original problem was 1/2 plus 3/8. Now I'm going to come back down here and show you that I took what once was 1/2 and I replaced it with 4/8. Now I didn't have to replace 3/8 because my denominator is 8. So I don't have to do anything to it. Now I'm going to do just like before, like I've shown you all along. 4 plus 3 is 7, and then you simply bring your 8 over as your denominator. All right. So now, is 7/8 in simplest form? Because remember, you need to ask always, is it in simplest form? And 7/8 is in simplest form. All right, so from this point forward, you have all the tools you need to successfully solve any fraction addition equation. So now, here in a little bit, you're going to get to try some on your own, and you can do this. Good luck.